Hi, this is Robert Kiyosaki, and you're listening to Capital Hacking. This is the most important thing you can listen to today.
He's the one.
I have a dream.
With great power comes great responsibility.
I could do this all day.
This is it. Don't get scared now.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom.
Cinderella's story out of nowhere.
It's in the hole. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Capital Hacking begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the big show. Josh McCallan here with the world famous John Edwin.
Josh, it is always so fun to just be on a podcast with you, interviewing amazing people like Adam Sondgeroth. He did such a great job. I mean, going from being a railroad worker to real estate.
Yeah, and he does it over 20 years. So, it's not a get rich quick scheme here. He just shows you how dogged determination can get you there. What we want, if you're listening to this and you're like, guys, I don't believe it that you can get to 100 units without being rich when you start. This show will show you the blue collar way to 100 units. And I think that's the key. Please suspend your disbelief and just take the steps. If you take the steps, I think it's all about getting in the room where other people are doing what you want to do and listening and asking questions and showing hustle. I think you'll get the deals, you'll find the capital, and you'll make the dream come true.
And one thing to add, he does teach us a secret because the banks cut him off. They stopped lending to him. So then he got into creative financing. Let's go.
Let's go, baby. Woo! This is the way to do it. We got Adam on the call today, John.
Yes, sir. My good friend, Adam Sondgeroth, welcome to Capital Hacking, number one. Number two, give us a little background on who you are, sir.
Thanks for having me. So Adam Sondgeroth, I'm in Southwest. I'm in Illinois, southwest of Chicago. Real estate investor. I've been working for the railroad for almost 29 years. So I've had a W-2 job the whole time I've been an investor. So yeah, investor. I was married. I have family. I started investing in real estate in 2001, I guess it was. Started buying some houses here and there, and I bought up until like 2007. Took a little break, got busy with work, and then I started buying again in 2016, went from about 100, or let's see what I have, about 10, 12 units in 2016, I guess it was, to like up to 106 in 2023. So,
Wow.
yeah, a lot of creative financing, owner financing, bank financing, kind of did the whole gambit. Did some syndications along the way, bigger multifamily stuff. So yeah, I bought a 21 unit deal last September. That was the most recent purchase I've had, and still kind of trucking along.
Adam, what I love about just even this small clip in the beginning of this story is that you were working in the railroad business for 22 years. And a guy that I follow, I'm sure Josh does as well, Jim Rohn, he said, have a quote unquote job that you can make a living, and then have a side hobby where you can make a fortune. And that's really what it sounds like. You're working on the railroad, you got your W-2, and then you have your side hustle in real estate. That's, in my opinion, one of the best ways to create a fortune. But what got you into that? Like, how did you go from, because I imagine in 2001, you're a blue collar, railroad, rough guy. How did the real estate thing come into play?
Hey everybody, it's Robert Helms, host of the Real Estate Guys radio program. And when you're not listening to our show, make sure you're tuned to Capital Hacking. You're going to dig it.
So, I was always kind of entrepreneurial as a kid anyway, kind of cheesy, but I like playing Monopoly, and that whole thing kind of inspired me. But I also read Rich Dad, Poor Dad shortly after it came out too, like, most everybody has, So in 01, I got married in 2000, and by 2001, my wife was pregnant. Our oldest was on the way, so we had to upgrade. So the house, I did own a house. I had to get a new house. So my first house kind of became my first investment property. I did a lease option on it for a couple of years, and then, that kind of snowballed into. I did another lease option a year later, which was supposed to be a flip. It turned into a rental, which I just sold for like 2 weeks ago, I guess it was. So I've had it since 02 till just 2 weeks ago. So yeah, it was supposed to be a flip.
Wow.
Yeah, so I became an accidental landlord that way. But I just started, and then I just kind of kept going. It takes a little bit to get over that first one, and I just kind of stumbled into it, and then I just kind of kept going. I bought it, and after that first one, I never bought anything else just single. I bought 2 duplexes at one time. I bought a couple other houses that one time to flip. I was going to flip one and then keep another one, and then it just kind of kept going until I got really busy in '07, and we had 2 kids by then, and it was just tough, So I kind of just slowed down for a while. So, and then I had some stuff go on at work, but we weren't working so much, and kind of had a pay cut, and I'm like, I'm gonna start buying real estate again. So I started buying, and I actually had a house burned down that worked out pretty well. There was 2 houses on one lot, and the one house took care of the mortgage, and the bank's like, well, use the insurance money, whatever you're gonna do with it. So literally took that insurance money and bought 5 more houses. So I just kind of kept going from there. It got to a point where the bank told me no, they wouldn't loan me any more money. So I found a guy that would do owner financing for me. No money down, which, you always hear about the things that do them no money down, but it's really not no money down. You still got to pay the mortgage when tenants don't pay, and you still got to come up with money for rehab stuff, So I did that for a little while too. So yeah.
That's great. And as far as, to go from having 10 properties in 2007, taking a break to 2016, and now having over 100 doors, do you have partners? How did you scale so quickly? Because usually one person just with a W-2 can't scale to over 100 units.
Right. Well, there's a lot of moving parts to that, and it's kind of hard to really scale when you're just a one-man operation too, because you can't kind of another point, you can't afford to really hire anybody until you get over like 20 units, I mean, you can run 20 units on your own, but it's hard to go from like 20 to 40, that's kind of the point where you can start to afford to, pay somebody. So I found this guy that would do owner financing. He's an older gentleman that was trying to get out of the business and just trying to consolidate everything, just trying to ease his life. So I found him through a mutual friend, and I literally when I met him, I had 22 or 23 units or something like that, and I've been doing it since, this was like 16, 17, something like that. So I've been doing it for a little while, and he had 20 units to sell me. So I went from 23 units one day to 43 units the next day, which really helped. And it was very low down payment. I think I gave him a property, but I had to have all my own rehab money, but I did a lot of stuff on my own too, so, and then I found another gentleman that, he had 13 units, I think, 13 or 14 units. And I had enough equity built up in the stuff that I did have that the bank give me a loan or give me a mortgage for half of he had 4 properties. So I get half of his properties on bank financing. And then he used that and financed the rest of it for me. He did owner financing on the rest of it, So that's really what I did. I got creative with everything. I do not have any partners on anything. My syndications are different, but on all my personal stuff, I don't have any partners. I just leverage, creative financing and equity wherever I had it, and the bank, like I said, the bank got to a point where the bank's like, yeah, we're not going to finance you anymore. So I had to get creative. And my portfolio was on owner financing or creative, some way, shape, or form, so.
What's interesting, Adam, and if we could, we'd love to do a little bit of case study. We'd love to learn from you, Professor. Okay, because what you're teaching sounds impossible to 99.9% of the world.
Yep.
Maybe even all the way to 99.9.9,
yep.
Because it's illogical to think, I have people I'm always trying to coach, the young people, and I'm like, guys, I have a certain formula I try to teach them. But before I share my little formula to live the way you did, Adam, how did you first, I understand your chronology of how you got into rentals because you obviously stumbled into it a little bit.
Yeah.
But when you get to the 20, and then you get to the next 20, remember you said you doubled 20 to 40.
Yep.
You must have been well known in your market. How did you get the word out to have that opportunity, that illogical thing start happening to you? How did people know to call you, Adam?
So by then I'd had some success, I was a little bit known around, but I literally just talked to people. And this happened to be a friend. Yeah, it was a friend of a friend that I met. It was actually this guy's son-in-law. He's like, hey, you should talk to Frank. He's like, he's always selling stuff, and he had been around for a long time. And I had literally never met him. I should have, but I had never met him. And I just had coffee with him, and told him my story. And I'd always kind of been able to connect with people like that because I'm kind of a no bullshit kind of guy. And people that are willing to do stuff with, like, they don't, you can't bullshit them. Most time people have been around for a while can kind of see through that stuff for a while. So I had been around, but I wasn't that well known, and I was just willing to take the chance. I had this conversation with people a lot. It's like, what do you want in life? Like, if that's what you want, you have to figure out how to go for it. You just have to do it. If you want it bad enough, you'll figure out a way, so.
And it, were there times of your life where you were in these meetups or any kind of real estate investor clubs or anything that helped you find those private deals?
Occasionally, I'm trying to think, maybe once or twice, but usually I would, like, if somebody said, hey, this guy Joe down the road has got a bunch of real estate or whatever else, then I would just start asking questions like, what's Joe do? How old is Joe? Does he have them all rented out? And I would, like, especially if they're older guys, like, I'd always give them a call, like, are you looking to sell? What do you want to do? I got a deal one time from a guy that, I talked to him about it, and he's like, well, I'm not really interested in selling, whatever. And then, like a week or two later, he was back at that place and had a fallout with one of his tenants. Like, he said they almost like got into a physical altercation. He calls me up. He's like, I will sell this to you, whatever you need. Like, I don't care. He's like, I'm done with this place. Take it off my hands before I end up going to jail because of this guy. I'm like, great. I was never afraid to have conversations with people. Like, if I heard about it, like, I would do it. That happened. I don't know how many. That's probably happened at least 3 times to me. I would talk to somebody and they come back like, this, I got to get rid of this thing. Or I'm going to go to jail because of this guy or whatever, So it's really all about relationships and not being afraid to take the chance and talk to people. I don't claim to be a great salesman or anything like that either. I just wasn't afraid to talk to people,
Hi, this is Melanie McCallan. Josh and I are just so grateful for the many investors who have already joined us at Accountable Equity. Accountable Equity is so much more than a capital group. It's really a community of accredited investors that want to learn and grow together. I just want to personally invite you, if you want to find out more about this type of investment and see if it's right for you and your family, please visit us at accountableequity.com.
Hey, it's Hal Elrod, author of The Miracle Morning, and you're listening to Capital Hacking. Enjoy.
Yeah, and those are the best opportunities when they come along and there's some kind of a hardship involved, or you have just like a bad tenant that's pushing your buttons and someone just doesn't have the patience to slow down and to go through the eviction process or whatever. I mean, that's a great way to acquire real estate when someone's running into a challenge. And like you, there's been so many examples for me in my real estate journey where people are either, someone's getting older, or there's some kind of a conflict or adversity that someone's facing. So good for you. And you're coming up with a solution for that person. Right. So it's a win-win on both sides. Something that comes up in my mind is when you get to 106 units, usually people start to pivot and go into larger types of pieces of real estate and can change classes. Is that something you're thinking about? What direction are you gonna keep acquiring, or are you gonna maybe go into a different?
So in 2019, well, let me back up a little bit. 2017, 2018, something like that, I found YouTube, and Bigger Pockets and podcasts and all that stuff, which some of us older guys aren't quite used to all that stuff, back in the day. So I found all that stuff, and I'm like, I figured out you could buy apartment buildings, and I figured out what syndication was. So in 2019, I found a multifamily membership or mentorship group, and I joined that. I joined it in May. By the first weekend of May, I went to Jacksonville, Florida. And by June, or let's see, July, maybe the end of July, I had met a lot of brokers and talked to a lot of people and put together a 253 unit portfolio that we ended up closing on by the end of 2019, which turned out to be a pretty good deal, quite honestly, because it was awesome. It was purely luck, buying in 2019, because we sold it in 22 for quite a bit more money. Yeah. And it's kind of how we've met, John. I'm kind of a guy that takes action. I don't like to just sit around, so I just kind of took it for action and went down to Jack's quite a few times. One story, the first property I got under contract, there was a guy, one of the brokers down there had a deal that was off market, and he called me like on Tuesday. He's like, "Hey, can you get down here for Friday to tour this property? The owner's representative will be here and we can get in and see it." So I'm like, "Yeah, sure." You know how it goes, John. So he calls me Tuesday. I fly down Friday, and I met we toured this property, and the owner's representative, Philip, I think was his name, something like that. He's like, give me a spiel and whatever else. And I don't know, he's a little bit stuck on himself. So we're sitting around kind of talking about it. And I'm like, Philip, what do we got to do to get this place? The broker, and by this time his guard's kind of up and he's just kind of defensive, And by this time the broker's like, "Philip, Adam flew down here from Chicago last night just to see you today. He wants to buy this property from you or from the owners." And he was leaning up against a vanity or something. He almost fell over because he couldn't believe that I flew down from Chicago to tour the property, just to see him and tour the property. And he's like, he couldn't believe it. So I'm like, "Yeah, I flew down to see this." And he asked me that 2 or 3 times as we toured the property. We ended up getting it for a pretty good deal. Like I said, and then we, made pretty good money off it when we sold it. But that's the thing, right? You got to take action. Like, I can call about a deal in Florida and get the numbers and whatever else. But if you're standing in front of a guy and shaking his hand, like, that holds a lot more weight than just, running numbers on a spreadsheet. So yeah, I did get into bigger deals. I'm still on.
Yeah. Great story.
Yeah. Thanks. And it's kind of to answer your question. I'm kind of restructuring my portfolio now, selling off a few units here and there, getting rid of some of the headaches. And I'm looking at still buying more multifamily stuff. Like I said, I bought a 21 unit last summer. I had a partner on that, but she's gone now. But so yeah, I'm looking to get more multifamily stuff now. So.
Hey guys, it's John Vroman, founder of Front Row Dads, and you're listening to Capital Hacking, the best investment you'll make today.
Yeah, and there's something to be said. I know Josh is chomping at the bit. I'm gonna turn it over to him in 1 second, but there's something to be said for your attitude of spontaneity. And I said it before we started the show. I was telling Josh that you and I we were talking. You had applied for GoBundance back in January, and we were having our Breckenridge big national trip, and it was like literally the next week, and it was already completely sold out. They had a wait list of like 50 plus people, and you said, "Well, I want to go." I said, "Well, just book the hotel, see if the hotel's still available, meet a bunch of guys. You may or may not be able to get into the main session, but at least be there. The connections are worth it." And that's when the Northeast had a big snowstorm and you got right into the conference. And then while you were there, you asked about the Philly chapter and you flew down to Philly like literally 2 weeks later. And,
Yep.
You are definitely a man of action. And yeah, I think that there is something to be said for people that, don't sit on their hands. There's so many people out there, and probably a lot of people even listening to this right now that have, an analysis paralysis.
Right.
Where they're looking at things and it has to go every direction and they're trying to, figure out like all the angles and make it perfect. You know what? Just jump. Like figure out how to build the plane when you're in the air. That's my suggestion. Josh, you had a question, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, Adam, congratulations on some of those deals. I mean, would you mind walking us through the business deal that you would teach us through your experience? The deal you bought in 2019. Can you give us some metrics? Like, I bought it for this, I used capital, and my business plan was Y, but I changed my business plan to X. You know what I mean? Like, what was the plan when you bought it? What was the reason you exited? Was that part of the plan to exit in 22? Give us a sense of how you made money on that deal.
Sure. So like I said, I was part of this group, and I had other partners on. It was a syndication. We raised funds for it, and we had a lot of partners, LPs, GPs, several GPs and LPs. I'm trying to think. I went down to Jack's from Chicago probably almost every other week, just to look at deals, just tour deals. And we bought, so one of the deals was an on-market deal that we got. And I think we paid, I don't remember, 63 a door or something like that. And then we got I got the deal that I just told you a story about that one. And then there was another one actually around the corner that we got, the first one was a 63 unit, and then the second one I think was 70 units, something along those lines. And I think we gave 70 a door for both of those deals. And we originally we offered on the 118 unit deal, the one that was on the market. We offered on that. There was, there's several guys looking at it, and Jacksonville wasn't quite as hot as it got. So we looked at these other off market deals, and we're like, well, we'll kind of just look at these and try to get on, try to get one or two or whatever. And then just for kind of a backup plan, And I've told guys this a lot, like, be careful what you wish for. Like, those are all just backup plans, and we end up getting all three deals, which in the long run worked out well, but you got to be able to, you got to be able to perform. So we got them all under contract, and they closed.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. We got all three deals under contract. All three deals were different owners. We all had three different closing times, but we put it together as a portfolio, and then we raised for the whole thing as one deal. Our plan was this value add deal. Our plan was to buy it, fix it up, raise rents, get the NOI up, and I think we had a 5-year business plan on it to sell it. Well, that was, I don't know, November 2019 or whatever it was, and COVID hits in March. Which I had another deal under contract. My partners had another deal under contract in Bradenton, which fell apart because of COVID. So yeah, so then COVID hit and everything went nuts. Then 2022 came along, and whatever that average is, across the portfolio, I think we sold the one deal, I think for 135 or 140, and the other ones we sold for 165 a door. We did pretty well on them for. We sold them at 22. The market.
Yes, you did. I will say, I think you kind of timed it perfectly, right?
Yeah.
So 2019, you were paying normal and, reasonably good prices. I don't think you were stealing them.
No.
And then the COVID came, and that made everybody want to get to Florida.
Right.
And then the rates didn't change, which crushed you, multifamily, until after you sold it, right? So you had sold it before the bottom fell out of multi rates for loans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You did a great job, buddy. Congratulations.
Thanks. And it was,
Were you the general partner?
I was one of them. Yeah. 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 We had a few of them on there. And we, it's one of those things where everybody says a lot of it was luck, and a lot of it was not like, my intelligence. It was just luck. But I'm also of the school that you make your own luck, right? So like, if I wouldn't have gone down there, I wouldn't have went after it. We never would have got it. So
You're absolutely right. That because you show up, and you take those leaps, man. I absolutely love this story, and I'm looking forward to us having you back in the future and hearing more about, your endeavors. And now that you're in GoBundance, I'm sure you're gonna scale quickly, man. It's to be that hockey stick. As far as, if our listeners want to follow up with you, how do they find you? How do they connect with you and ask you questions?
I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. They can email me. I don't know if you guys put the email in the chat notes or in the notes or whatever, but yeah, they can email me or whatever. Hit me up wherever. I'm on all the socials.
Awesome. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here, buddy. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Josh.
Cheers.
Damn straight. We just got
buddy.
We got to the end of another great show, and everyone listening right now, you're the family and friends. Thanks for staying till the end.
That was so fun. And hey, hit the like, hit subscribe. We're here to serve you guys. That's why we're doing this show. Josh is not paying me. I'm doing this off of my quote unquote sweat equity because we want to make a difference in your life. And then that ripple effect will continue to touch the world.
Hey, amen, brother. Please check us out on capitalhacking.com, all the social media threads. And yes, I know you've probably already sent this episode to one of your best friends. Thank you. We love you. Just go right into your iPhone, hit the plus symbol. We'll talk to you later. See you next week.
Share.